Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Persons with Disabilities Bill, being National Assembly Bill number 61 of 2021, be now read a second time. Honorable Speaker, let me start by thanking the Committee on Labor and Social Services because when we committed this bill to them, they made it a priority and were able to bring in the report, which has just been tabled. And I do hope that members will agree with the committee because the issues are as contained within this bill. Honorable Speaker, the primary purpose of this bill is really to modernize the current law that relates to persons with disabilities, noting that the current law that we have was last updated in, is actually the Persons with Disabilities Act number 14 of 2003. So we are almost 19 years into when the last law for relating to people with disabilities was done, and yet so many events have taken place, which I'll be enumerating. We also know it has several deficits and loopholes, partly also to do with the requirements within the Constitution that came in 2010 and which has not been updated. Honorable Speaker, according to the 2019 census, which is the only document that we have, the Kenya Population and Housing Census, it lists that there are about 2.2% of all Kenyans have a form of disability, with the most prevalent types, of course, being disabilities to do with mobility and capacity related. And hence, when you look at the population we are talking of, this bill comes into this House with an intention of catering for approximately 1.5 million Kenyans. I know we keep hearing of a number that there are 6.5 people with disabilities represented in this House, but the only record I can find is the census of 2019, which puts that number at approximately 1.5 million Kenyans. And I don't believe that between 2019 and now, the number of people with disability has increased exponentially to actually come to the 6.5. But we have 1.5 million Kenyans we need to take care of. In this regard, this bill recognizes all rights and entitlements of these people in this special category. These rights, again borrowing from the Constitution, are basically the right to equality and non-discrimination. We have the right to legal capacity, the right to marry and form a family, the right to privacy, the right to physical and mental integrity, in addition to all these other bills. But these specific ones are relevant to this group of persons. Additionally, the bill spells out some rights and entitlements unique to persons with disabilities, including the right not to be dismissed on account of any form of disability, and also the right to independent living, the right to participate in sports and recreation within a situation where there are no barriers to that participation, and several others that will be captured. Now, putting this into perspective, Honorable Speaker, since the enactment of the current act in the year 2003, some developments I did mention include, in 2008, Kenya became a party to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, that is the 2006 CPRD, which established transformative norms and standards on the rights of persons with disabilities. Then in 2010, the Constitution of Kenya was promulgated, again including specific and robust provisions covering the rights of persons with disabilities. Then in 2015, the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities issued its initial concluding observations to Kenya, making a number of recommendations on how our great republic should ensure the rights of persons with disabilities. And finally, in January of this year, just about 5 months ago, Kenya deposited its instrument of ratification on the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in Africa 2008, which is referred to as the Disability Rights Protocol, which affirms the rights of persons with disabilities on the continent. Honorable Speaker, the National Council for Persons with Disabilities indicates that there have been numerous unsuccessful attempts to have this bill, but both protracted and lengthy stakeholder consultations have been a big hindrance, and I'm happy that at long last, people have realized you can only overanalyze a situation until you paralyze it. And this is one of those situations where so much analysis and everyone wanting their say in this bill was leading to becoming, putting a disability on the bill, moving into the next level. But at last we have managed to extract it from that, and the committee has fast-tracked it, and we now have a bill. And I'm sure, especially because this bill does not need to go to the Senate, and I would urge members, even as we process this bill, we take special cognizance for any amendments members would want to bring that would end up leading this bill to go to the Senate, because we don't have the luxury of that time. So we confine matters to matters that can be conversed and finished within this House without affecting the governance and whatever of county government, which will lead this bill to go to the Senate. And we don't want to get that, because 19 years is such a long period for people with disabilities waiting for a bill that is at par with the current laws, and we don't want to deny them that opportunity at this point. So, Speaker, when you look at the international stage, Kenya has in the past been hailed for being up to date with the adoption of progressive policies. And in 2018, the United Kingdom, the Department for International Development, which is within the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, did, together with the International Disability Alliance, and the government of Kenya hosts the first Global Disability Summit in London, and which had brought together both the state and non-state actors. And it's during this summit the representatives of the government made several commitments, including the ratification of various protocols and amending our law to keep pace with the changing circumstances. And I did mention earlier that just this January, one of those protocols was ratified as part of this commitment. Now, I believe that part of the reason our country stands out in the community of nations is because not only because of our industry, but also because we are a progressive nation committed to upholding the highest standards of human dignity. And indeed, I do recall in the last two national days that we have attended, His Excellency the President has been very clear in terms of articulating why we need to remove our people from, or get rid of the indignities that they go through, indignities of seclusion, indignities of poverty, indignities of fear, and for people with disabilities, we're talking of liberating them from the indignities of discrimination and bringing them to the dignity of inclusivity within the larger community. So, Honorable Speaker, then, enacting this bill will be one of the ways of living up to this, our standard that we set for ourselves, and offering the best environment for all Kenyans to operate, and most importantly, earn a living within a dignified environment, and where nobody is discriminated on account of being physically different or than what we used to, what we call the normal person versus the person who are able differently, as the various things are people call the different nomenclatures. So, Honorable Speaker, although this bill seeks to amend the 2003 Act, it is intentionally and purposely drafted to retain the progressive provisions of the current Act. So we're not just getting rid of the Act, the current Act as it is. Again, most of the provisions of the current Act are retained, but again, updated as far as possible. For example, the administrative institution, which is the National Council of Persons with Disability, and which has played a key role in advocating for the rights of persons with disabilities, has been retained in the bill. Additionally, it has also retained the incentives that are given to private employers who offer employment to the persons with disability. And most importantly, all the reliefs and the tax incentives that were given in terms of tax exemptions that are being given to people living with disability, including access to credit, preferential access to credit, have also been retained. So we are not losing anything in terms of what we already have as of 2003, but it's now being brought into a situation where we can have a modern law in line with the Constitution, and that will respond to issues that have risen between 2003 and to date. It's in this regard then, Honorable Speaker, that I wish to urge members of this House to support this bill as a show of their support and empathy to our brothers and sisters who are living with disabilities in our great republic, and to ensure that they are also mainstreamed into the larger society. Honorable Speaker, with those remarks, I beg to move, and I would wish to ask the Honorable Tom Ondege, on behalf of, the Vice Chair is here. I hadn't seen him, but the Honorable Gideon Koskei, the Vice Chair of the Committee on Labor and